Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today we're talking about this one, Beethoven and Brahms, Violin Concerti, both of them, with Nathan Milstein and the Pittsburgh Symphony under William Steinberg. Now, these were recorded in 1955, I think it was. Well, one says 1954, 1957, something around there. They are in mono, but very good mono, very listenable mono. Just no reason to complain about it, mono. And the performances are just super. I mean, astoundingly, marvelously terrific, and amazingly swift and exciting. It's really interesting because, we talked about how things started to slow down in the latter half of the 20th century, and they did. And there were many reasons that people speculated about for the things slowing down. One of them was that the expected perfection of the recording studio led people to try and take things a little bit more measured, in a more measured fashion live as well, so that every note mattered or counted. That may have been in certain cases. I don't actually buy that explanation. There was, I think, a certain zeitgeist, a search for profundity in every note that allowed things to get slower and slower and slower, especially in the Germanic repertoire. But on the other hand, since the period instrument people were doing things faster and faster and faster, there was a countervailing trend. What's interesting about these performances is just how effortlessly fluent they are. I mean, the first movement of the Beethoven can take 25 minutes easily. Here it takes 21, which is like Heifitz's tempo. You understand? The first movement of the Brahms, I mean, that could go 28 minutes, 30 minutes. Who was it? Kennedy did one with like Tenstedt or something. It was like half an hour long. It was excruciating. And here it's 19 minutes and 36 seconds. With Milstein's own cadenza. In fact, all of these things have his own cadenzas, which is one of their attractions because they're very good cadenzas. But it just goes to show you're not conscious so much of speed. In this kind of music, and this classical music that is inspired by music of the classical period by composers who really understood sonata form, you should not be conscious of movement unless it's exciting. I mean, the only movement you should be conscious of is forward movement. In other words, if it's slow and dull, something is terribly wrong. And these performances have not a single dead spot. And Milstein is just an extraordinary violinist, and he was an incredibly cultured and intelligent person. He really understood what he was doing. I mean, he wrote a wonderful autobiography. It was witty and full of interesting observations about music and the universe. And the fact of the matter is, he always was sort of playing second fiddle, pardon the pun, to Heifetz and to a certain degree Oistrakh, some of those just stellar names. But he was one of them. And he was a pupil of one of the last pupils, I think, of Leopold Auer, the guy who rewrote the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, and he was part of the golden age of great violinists, and he lived well into the stereo era. He made beautiful recordings of basic concerti, Mendelssohn and Tchaikovsky, but he also did the Dvorak and some other things that people weren't doing as frequently. And this recording of Beethoven and Brahms is simply as fine as anything anybody ever did. And it amazes me that it's so often overlooked, maybe because it's in mono. He remade them both in stereo very, very well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with his stereo remakes, but these most people consider to be sort of the pinnacle of his achievement as a concerto violinist in this repertoire anyway. And they really are just knockout recordings of both works. You have to hear them. You just have to hear them. They're glorious. And certainly they belong in the annals of the greatest recordings ever. And until we have a really good Milstein box from Warner, which we keep talking about and they have to do, it's so urgent that they do it. I mean, this is a guy, they've got the big Oistrakh box coming shortly. But Milstein deserves at least as much attention. He was just as fine a violinist, and these are two of his very, very greatest recordings, and two of the greatest recordings of the works in question. And you've got Steinberg, who was also marvelous in Pittsburgh. It was just a marriage made in heaven. So give it a shot and see if you don't agree. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.